To the Israeli occupation authorities' crimes against the Palestinians, 2 Palestinian resistance men kill 5 Israeli settlers in occupied Jerusalem. American Secretary of State admits to the presence of a large number of foreign terrorists in Syria and Iraq, ignoring the role of U.S. allies in Saudi Arabia and Turkey to facilitate their entrance into the region. Iraqi troops start the operation of liberating al-Assad province northeast of Baquba from ISIL terrorists. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Irado Krikorian with the news in English. Retaliating to the crime committed by Zionist settlers against a Palestinian young man in Deir Yassin, 2 Palestinian resistance men carried out a commando operation in Jerusalem, killing 5 Israelis and wounding 9 before being killed by Israeli occupation troops.
In retaliation to the heinous crime perpetrated by Zionist settlers who hanged Palestinian youth Youssef Hassan Ramouni in a bus in Deir Yassin, west of occupied Jerusalem, 2 Palestinian resistance men belonging to the Popular Front have carried out a commando operation, breaking into a synagogue in Har Nov Street in occupied Jerusalem, wearing a uniform believed to be either that of Israeli police or religious clerics. They stabbed a number of Israeli settlers with knives, killing 5 of them and wounding 9 others, most of them sustaining serious injuries. The 2 Palestinian young men were shot and killed by Israeli occupation troops. It was later found out that one of the 2 young men was a driver working in a bus that belonged to the company where Marta al-Ramouni worked. In the wake of this operation, a state of alert was declared by the Zionist enemy and confusion was monitored among its circles. Zionist news media referred to intensive deployment of occupation troops and the installation of barricades in Jerusalem. Meanwhile, Israeli occupation forces completely closed down the village of Jabal al-Mukabbir, southeast of occupied Jerusalem, the birthplace of the 2 martyrs who executed the operation. Israeli military reinforcements were meanwhile sent to Hawara barricade south of Nablus and the West Bank. Israeli forces also attacked the house of the 2 young men in Jabal al-Mukabbir using tear gas bombs and rubber bullets. They were intercepted by Palestinian young men who were beaten and fired at by the Israeli soldiers. Scores of Palestinians were injured and 2 of the young men's families were arrested. A number of journalists were also assaulted by the Israeli military. A storming-in campaign was moreover launched by Israeli occupation troops into the village of Bet Amir north of Khalil Hebron and the village of Baalin in the West Bank. Several Palestinians were detained. Military barricades were also set up at the entrances of Sa'ir village and Halhul bridge.
Deputy Foreign and Patriots Minister Dr. Faisal Maqdad has underlined the important relations between Syria and Palestine, which is considered as the central and pivotal cause and the Arab and Islamic landmarks of which the Zionist occupation authorities are trying to wipe out. During his reception of the PLO Executive Committee's member Ahmed Majdalani, Dr. Faisal Maqdad stressed Syria's support and call on the UN Security Council to take a decisive decision that would set a date for ending Zionist occupation. This would reveal those who try to ignore the Palestinian people's right to establish their Palestinian state. On his part, Majdalani asserted the Palestinians stand on Syria's side in confronting terrorism, pointing out that improving the situation in Syria would positively be reflected on the Palestinian arena. The 2 sides also discussed the subject of the camps, particularly Al Yarmouk camp, and ways to solve the situation there caused by the terrorist elements. He welcomed the efforts carried out by the Syrian government, whether political, social or humanitarian, in order to restore security and stability to the country. Welcome back. American Secretary of State John Kerry has said that the majority of ISIL terrorists who are carrying out suicidal operations in Syria and Iraq and who are present in the front lines of the fight are foreigners who have been recruited and who have received orders to commit the ugliest crimes. Addressing the third forum hosted by Foreign Policy magazine in Washington, Kerry said, "The world community must work to hinder the influx of terrorists who have been recruited by this organization." He added, however, that those who have been misled, as he put it, must be allowed to be rehabilitated. Kerry reiterated the call to continue cooperation between the US and Russia in order to reach a solution to the crisis in the country, recalling what he described the successful cooperation between the two sides concerning the elimination of chemical weapons in Syria. "We believe in the possibility of such cooperation, as there is no military solution to the situation in the country," Kerry said. Moreover, and in the wake of the criticism leveled against the American administration due to its negligence in dealing with the American hostages issue, abandoning them and leaving them to be killed in the ugliest way by ISIL terrorists in Syria, American President Barack Obama issued orders for a comprehensive review of its administration's policy and the way it deals with American hostages across the world and how to get them liberated. The National Security Department in the city of Osh in Kyrgyzstan has said that it has been able to detain Bishkek and Osh airports more than 30 of its citizens who had been sent to Syria to join terrorist organizations. Head of the Security Department in Bishkek said that recruitment of citizens to take part in terrorist operations in Syria was conducted through social networks and presence in mosques. The security official pointed out that most of the men recruited were aged between 18 and 21. He estimated the number of Kyrgyz citizens who had joined the terrorist organizations to have ranged between 100 and 300. He pointed out that security men had foiled the activities of extremist groups who had received training in Middle Eastern camps, adding that one such group used to steal money from rich citizens and send some funds to Syria to buy weapons and ammunition. In Daraa, a Syrian Arab army unit killed many terrorists and injured others in Deir al-Adas town, destroying a vehicle equipped with heavy machine gun in the vicinity of Al-Qasr al-Aswad. In Homs countryside, Syrian Arab army units killed a number of terrorists and injured others in Al-Barghouthiyya and between the two villages of Salam Gherbi and Khreje, as well as in Aqrab in Al-Hule and near Talbise and Sharshuh. In Idlib countryside, Syrian Arab army units eliminated many terrorists in Kafr Shlaya, Kafr Roma and Abu Dhuhur and foiled several terrorist attacks on some military posts in the vicinity of Al-Arba'in mountain. ISIL terrorists have killed 5 people and mutilated their bodies in Deir ez-Zor countryside. According to civil sources, the terrorist organization has killed Khalil al-Hussein al-Barghouth and his 2 sons Muhammad and Hamada in Ad-Dahla in the eastern part of the governorate's countryside. They also killed Riyad Hamdan al-Ali and Dawood Sulaiman Hassan in Al-Kasra village in the governorate's western suburb, beheading them and crucifying their bodies. Iraqi army started an operation to liberate As-Saadiya northeast of Baqouba in Diyala province from the terrorist organization of Daesh, maintaining control on a strategic road and killing 3 terrorists. Meanwhile, Iraqi forces maintained control over one of the biggest weapon warehouses for the terrorist organization of Daesh in Al-Azim Dam area, containing mortar and tank shells as well as light weapons and equipment for making explosive devices. Meanwhile, Iraqi aircrafts struck a convoy of Daesh terrorists north of Tikrit, killing 20 terrorists and destroying 5 vehicles. Also, Iraqi army supported by the residents and 3 tribes west of Al-Anbar continued advancing to the center of Heat province to liberate it from Daesh terrorists. The UN Office for Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs said that Iraq witnessed a growing instability this year as a result of the crimes committed by the terrorist organization of Daesh. The UN office pointed out to the fighting and the atrocities committed by Daesh in Iraq, including the beheadings, have led to new waves of displacement, forcing more than 2 million Iraqis to flee their houses, seeking refuge in more than 2,000 locations. 4 soldiers have been killed and 15 others injured in fierce clashes between the terrorist organization's so-called members of the Shura Council of the Revolutionists in the western axis of Benghazi city. Earlier, the Libyan parliament has declared the city of Benghazi as a distressed city due to the terrorist attacks of militias that have taken civilians as human shields. Finally, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has said that the double standards policy adopted by the EU vis-à-vis the Ukrainian crisis and the sanctions imposed on Russia undermine trust and stability in Europe. He further voiced his country's hope that Russia and the EU would not reach the point of no return regarding their relations, as Russia was still regarding the EU as a vital economic partner. Lavrov called upon the European Commission and the EU countries to form an economic and humanitarian sphere from the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. With this, we conclude our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Nariman Qassam, but after a short break.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. In vegetables and fruit markets, we observe a big difference in prices due to the present crisis and the sanctions imposed on Syria. This has led to differences in the prices of the same product from one market to another, affecting the mood of both vendors and consumers. More in the following.
Fruit and vegetables are part of our basic needs, and getting them into the market, then into the Syrians' meals, costs Syrian citizens a lot of money.
Prices here are affordable for all consumers. The most important thing is that it is cheaper here. Prices are very high. All commodities are available but in high prices. The margin of difference between here and another market is about 30%. Prices are very high and stores must be removed. Prices here are higher than in regular shops. In government establishments they are cheaper.
Prices are very high. On TV we hear that they have dropped. But when we go shopping, we find they are higher. Everything is available, but in high prices.
During this crisis, transportation fees are not the only reason of high prices. However, the main side that is affected is Syrian citizens, not only in Damascus, but in all Syrian provinces.
The Central Bank of Syria has set the exchange rate of the US dollar against the Syrian pound at 191.91 Syrian pounds for banks and 192.5 for exchange companies. The Central Bank also set the exchange rate of the US dollar against the Syrian pound for commercial and non-commercial purposes at 192.8 Syrian pounds. On the other hand, the euro exchange rate reached 240.82 Syrian pounds for banks and 240.99 Syrian pounds for exchange companies, while the euro was set at 239.58 Syrian pounds for commercial and non-commercial purposes. The Director General of the Engineering Industries Establishment asserted that the establishment has resumed work and production in a number of its affiliated companies. through transporting some production lines to safe areas and ease the burden on the general treasury. However, he added that the total production value reached 6.7 billion Syrian pounds since the beginning of this year till September, while the total planned value of sales reached about 3.9 billion Syrian pounds for the same period, increasing 160%. Brent crude rose for the second time in 3 days as investors weighed the likelihood that OPEC will reduce output when it meets next week amid signs of weakening global demand. U.S. crude oil also climbed, buoyed by a weakening dollar. European stocks rose before a decision by Japanese Prime Minister to add stimulus. Japanese shares also rose as investors await a press conference by Prime Minister, at which he is expected to delay a sales tax increase and boost stimulus after the economy sank into recession. Gold climbed to the highest in 2 weeks on speculation that the European Central Bank may purchase assets, including bullion, to counter low inflation. Gold for immediate delivery rose 0.9% to reach $1,197 an ounce. The Japanese yen fell for the fourth day against the dollar, as Prime Minister was reported to have told his party's leaders that he'll call an early election and delay a planned sales tax increase. Ladies and gentlemen, this was our economic news for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.